Hello, and welcome to another episode of History Bluffs, where truth is stranger than fiction. Welcome now to the stage, to the show. It's your host, Alan.
Yes. Hello, audience of History Bluffs. Hello, you, the audience member of History Bluffs. I am Alan, as the announcer Adam told you. And speaking of Adam, there he is. There he is on the screen. Those of you watching us on YouTube Live can see Adam in all of his glory. But
geez.
There he is. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, Amazon, Google Music, we're on a whole bunch of streaming services, aren't we?
I think we're on Napster, too.
Are we? No, wait, there is no Napster anymore, but that would be awesome if we were.
Alan, I'm going to give you the full stage. I'll be here.
Appreciated, Adam, as always. Thank you again. Yes, truth is stranger than fiction, as many of our longtime viewers and listeners know. And what we're going to do now, if you're familiar with the show, obviously we're going to introduce our historians. Let's bring out our old friend Carlos from Chicago. Hey, Carlos.
Hello.
Hey, how are things in Chicago? How's the weather now that it's October?
Oh man, the weather here. I mean, I know it's great over there, but here it is terrible. The weather has dropped to like 67 degrees, Alan. I don't know if you can imagine a weather change like that where you're at right now. Okay, Chicago is suffering.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but it was 65 before the sun came up here, so I can kind of picture that. Is that what it's like when the sun is high noon?
No, it's around 69.
Oh, okay. It was
not that bad.
Topped out at about 84 here in Orlando, which was fine theme park weather for me. I enjoyed it with my family, and in the shade, it was in the 70s. It was great.
Oh boy, that sounds nice.
It is nice. Speaking of nice, everyone's nicest friend, Gina, is here as well.
Hi. Thanks, Alan.
You're very welcome, Gina. And that is no exaggeration. Gina is a very nice person, always very pleasant and polite. Gina, how are things where you are right now?
Gosh, we are, I think we might be going down into the 60s this evening, so I'm so excited. I have to say, not to discount what our friends on the other side of the state are going through, but the hurricane has made the weather here very beautiful. So I hope that they all kind of get their life back because they've been so shattered. But yeah, that was good. But I'm good in comparison, especially, you know?
That is a feeling of survivor's remorse, I think. Yes, I agree. Mm-hmm. We definitely have seen the benefits of Hurricane Ian, and our thoughts are definitely with those who've received the worst of it. But here's someone who wasn't even in the state of Florida when Hurricane Ian hit. That's Chris. How are you, Chris?
Hello, I'm doing well, thank you. Yes, I was lucky enough to evade the hurricane. I was out of town, so I'm lucky to be able to say that. Yes.
Not only did you evade it, how did your your property do?
I did fine. I did well. No damage and no flooding, as you all pointed out, unlike so many other people. So I am extremely lucky in that regard. Yes.
All right. Very nice. Good to hear. It is good to hear that not only stuff on my front, but all of my friends, my family, we made do pretty well. Actually, I've got a friend who's near the Gulf Coast, and he's far enough north to not have received any damage as well. So I'm very thankful that many friends were spared the brunt of Ian as it did blow, which is our topic.
I did not make that.
Too soon. Too soon.
Who picked this?
As a person who lives in Chicago, I am offended.
Yes, the Windy City received none of Ian's wins, as a matter of fact. But yes, the topic is blow. And now, for those of you that don't know the rules of History Bluffs, our tech Adam is going to bring them up on the screen.
Here we go, Alan. I'm bringing the rules up now. Go ahead and tell the audience what they haven't won yet.
That's right, audience and contestants. You have not won anything, and you probably won't either. But You are going to be inspired by the topic of blow. These stories that are true must, in fact, be factual. Nothing can be made up in the true stories. So, you, the listener, will be learning something today. And the bluff story will have to be fictional. The premise of the story is fictional. There might be some details in there that are true. However, everything else is going to be false. The crux of the story, if you will be a complete fabrication. And those of you that are watching us live on YouTube, you are able to comment, and I will bring up any of those comments that I see during the show. But please, please, please do not help our contestants, as that will spoil the game. Thank you, audience. Thank you, digital audience, I should say. Now, I forgot to mention that these are timed rounds. Round 1 is 75 seconds. Round 2 is a full minute. And round 3 is a mere 45 seconds. At the end, we will determine who is the armchair historian and who is the history bluff. Yes. So, Adam, without further ado, I think we should start on our first round.
All right, let's get right into round 1.
All right, Carlos, I'm going to give you the center square, and you're going to be given your full 75 seconds for round 1, which is going to start with a bang.
Okay, so we're talking about blow, and what's the thing we like to blow the most? Bubbles! So I'm talking about Cincinnati's Bubble Day, which occurred back on Saturday, July 26, 1987. Here's the story. So Habitat for Humanity, Greater Cincinnati, just brought in a new president for their chapter. They were grappling with high construction costs, growing population, financial constraints at the time. So they needed to figure out a way to have a fundraiser, and to get people aware of Habitat for Humanity, get more volunteers. And when they get more volunteers signed up, so they thought, what can we do? What can we do? So they brought in a new president chapter, and this was his main task when he was first brought in. His name was Trev Henning, and he's like, how do I bring up the volunteer numbers? How do I, fundraiser event for the summer, for the year? His daughter Allie, who was 8 years old, loved bubbles. And she was in this thing right now where she was like super focused on just blowing bubbles with her friends and who could blow the biggest bubble. And that gave Trev an idea.
There it is. All right, Carlos made it in under time. Gina, how do you feel about that story about bubbles?
I think he's trying to have us have some empathy because he got the idea from his daughter, Allie. And we don't even know if Allie really exists or if he just got that, out of his butt.
Bubble butt?
Your bubble butt. So you have a nice butt, bubble butt there, Carlos.
How do you know if I have a nice butt?
Oh.
I can't see it now. No, I can't see it.
Why are you picturing my butt?
Carlos, I can't see it now.
Alan, I call timeout on this. I think I have to go for a little while.
All right, Carlos is feeling harassed. He's been
Oh,
triggered.
my apologies. I did not mean to make you feel harassed. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I shall not do it again.
Carlos is
double down.
sarcastic.
Double down on it.
Okay.
He
I just need a
prefers
heads up
women
next
noticing his butt, as a matter of fact.
What?
But, Chris,
How am I getting it for both sides? Who's in charge?
what say you on this bubble story?
I think, as Gina mentioned, it could be feasible. He just put out some innocuous information about this gentleman, his lovely daughter Allie, and he's looking for volunteers. It's always good to help.
I didn't say she was lovely.
No. Hey, listen. But because it's so generic and so Americana, I'm waiting for more information in this story. Round number 2 and 3 perhaps will tell me whether I think. But right now, I'd say his truthiness is on the bubble for me. I don't know which way.
Good pun. Well placed. All right. Well, our other historians have weighed in. So now it is time for Gina to take the center square, and she's going to tell us her story involving blow, which will begin with the cannon shot.
Okay, so my story is about Treasure Island. I don't know if you've ever read the book. It's by Robert Louis Stevenson, and he was born in Scotland in 1850. And it's going to be two stories that will eventually relate. Historians now, if you're not familiar with Treasure Island, it's a story about treasure maps and treasure and finding, buccaneers and booty and all those things, the historians now have been doing a lot of research, and they believe that actually Robert Louis Stevenson, who said that his story was completely fictional, may have actually been based on a true story by Captain William Thompson. So I'm going to tell you about that story in a second, but and how they figured it all out and all of the facts, and at the end you can decide, whether you believe it or not. But it's about the lost treasure of Lima and how he utilized that. And he actually, historians believe he found that in another island. So what happened was in Lima, Peru in the 1820s, that was controlled by Spain. And while Spain was in charge of it, the Peruvian the Incans that lived there were very upset that their land was being, they used dynamite to get jewels from the mountain, silver and things like that. And so the Peruvians were very upset by this, and they were about to start a civil war. And I'll tell you what happened right after that.
Oh, she did it. Came in under time. Carlos, what is your opinion on this Treasure Island story?
I think her story blows. Did she mention blow? I'm trying to remember. Was the word blow said once? One time? Was it?
Dynamite.
Yes.
Dynamite.
Wait, dynamite? Oh, okay. Blowing up.
Yeah.
All right, because Gina has this fun thing where she takes a topic and then throws it away. She takes a topic and then she's like, it's somewhere over there now. Don't worry about it.
Not Gina.
So okay, I'm cautiously pessimistic.
Okay. Pessimistic but cautiously. Very nice. Very nice.
Aren't all pessimists cautious? Isn't that why they're pessimistic?
No.
They can be dedicated with their pessimism. They can be very dedicated pessimists. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Chris,
Takes work.
what's your take on the Treasure Island story?
Well, first, I'd just like to give a shout out to Carlos for being the topic cop once again. We can never have a show without worry, I should say. We'll never have a show without worrying about someone straying off topic because Carlos will put the bumpers and keep everybody in the lane. Having said that,
Somebody has to do it.
about Gina's story, again, a nice opening here with some good information. But I will say this: she mentioned Lima, Peru, and that raised my attention because in my non-scientific opinion, Lima, Peru has per capita the most beautiful people in the world because I've met 3 women from Lima, Peru. Each one of them was drop dead gorgeous. Therefore, by my logic, Lima has the most beautiful people in the world. So as a result, right now I'll believe because I like Lima as a result, and so I will give Gina the benefit of the doubt. I'm leaning more towards Gina's truthiness than Carlos at the moment.
Winning.
It's not winning.
Chris might be swayed by the thought of a beautiful woman and the name of the topic. I believe that Chris, you're the only one who has not shared a story with us. Is that right?
That's correct. That is correct.
All right, Chris, you may take your round one time once you hear that cannon.
All right. Well, my story is centered around seaplanes, and specifically the acronym that comes to mind for probably 99% of the population when they hear the acronym BLOW, biplanes landing on water. Okay? That is where we're going. There's a gentleman named Glenn Curtis from New York, and who in his day, in the early 1900s, he was, I can see Carlos sighing it right now. Glenn Curtis, known as the fastest man on earth, but he had a blow to his reputation and a blow to his ego by being sued multiple times, and I'll get into this, but he was very controversial. He had originally, once he started working on seaplanes, he got sued by a bunch of Frenchmen. There's a guy named Alphonse Pénaud who put out the first patent for a flying machine with a boat hull attached, and then there was an Austrian named Wilhelm Kress, and then another Frenchman named Gabriel Voisin, and all these guys were suing Glenn Curtis because they said that he was basically ripping off their ideas. And then I will get into his, but this guy was a renowned motorcyclist. He set the 2 land speed records going 64 miles an hour and 136 miles an hour in 1904. And I'll get to more about him in a minute.
Wow. Chris with the acronym spelling blow out of biplanes landing on water. Gina, what say you?
Well, gosh, I'm amazed that this man was given like this prize for being so super fast at 64 miles an hour on a motorcycle because cheetahs can beat him. So I don't know if this is actually true or not. The 64 miles an hour doesn't feel very fast to me.
It was 1903.
Okay, 1903, maybe that. Okay, you sold me. I am no longer winning, Chris is.
Cheetahs were beating a lot of things in 1903. That does make sense to some degree. Carlos, what do you think of the biplanes landing on water topic?
I'm about to blow my top in anger, Alan, because he just made up an acronym that does not exist, and I dare you to Google that right now. That gobbledygook he said, biplane land on water.
That's against the rules.
What's happening?
Against the rules.
It's against the rules.
The rules, there's nothing in the rules that say you can't use an acronym. It's inspired by the word.
It doesn't exist.
There's no
He made up the
acronym.
acronym.
Wait, I have a question. Is the acronym seaplanes or is it SEA plane? Like, what's the acronym?
B-L-O-W.
Yeah, blow.
Biplanes land on water.
B-L-O-W. Gina doesn't even know because it's not real. Also, he's talking to me about putting in a little girl to get some sort of credit while he's like putting stink on these European names as if that makes them more valid. Je viendrai.
I do get
this. Oh.
He did. He made too many accents or dialects. That was too much. But I do give him credit because that's dead on using the title.
Adam, take this away. It's not a thing. This isn't a thing.
Yes, sir.
All right? Don't act like it is.
Oh, all right.
I think that Chris, when told that this was the topic, said, let me think of what BLOW could be an acronym for. And he probably had like 5 stories written.
To quote the film Chud, cannibalistic my ass. And to paraphrase it, biplane landing my ass.
Your ass
That's
is
not a real acronym. No,
Well,
Christina.
all acronyms have to have been made up at some point. So let's
here.
just say this is
Not
the
now.
first time it's been used if Carlos is accurate. So you know what? That's all we're going to squeeze out of round 1, Adam. So let's move on to the next round.
Let's bring it home. Not home. We're halfway home to round 2.
Thank you, digital audience. Gina, we're going to get you the first shot at round 2 with a shot from our cannon.
Okay, so as the rebels were at the Lima Capitol gates, the bishop said, oh my gosh, they're going to break in and we need to protect all of our belongings. So they took all of the treasure that was lodged in the Catholic Church and they put it onto boats, and they hired an English captain named Captain William Thompson to take a Spanish crew out with him to take the riches away so that people couldn't steal it. So 2 weeks after Captain Thompson sets out, he comes back and he's on a lifeboat with only like 5 or 6 other men. And he says that the ship sunk, and he said that the treasure sank with it. And so the people in Lima did not believe them, and they put them in jail, and they even tortured them. And they discovered that through torture that the treasure had actually made it to land, and it had made it to a place called Cocos Island. Well, Williams finally admitted, yes, we did make it to land. The whole thing was a sham. I'll take you to Cocos Island, and I'll show you where it is. So he brings them out to Cocos Island, and while they're there, he escapes. And I'll leave it right there.
Ooh. Carlos, what's your judgment on that round for Gina?
My judgment is that there's not enough alcohol to bear through the story that Gina is trying to tell, the yarn. I don't think she even mentioned dynamite this time, so her weak, flimsy tie-in to the show topic is not even mentioned. So she did the opposite of what she usually does. Usually she avoids it for the first round. She's avoiding it for the second round. And I will police it because clearly somebody has to, because Adam's not doing it and you're not doing it. So I'll do it. I'll play the game and be the ref. That's number one.
And
number
I take
two,
that compliment. Oh, you have more.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I have another one. Cocos. That's Kokomo. She's stealing it from a song. She took Kokomo, she chopped off the mo, and she made up an island out of it.
Oh.
That's where I want to go. Oh, to Kokomo.
Okay. Chris, what say you?
I am in somewhat agreement with Carlos, specifically on the islands. I think Cocos is not necessarily Kokomo, but Caicos, as in Turks and Caicos. And I think Gina was just kind of like looking at a map and say, okay, what can I pull from this and this for my fabricated story here? I think now I'm leaning more towards Gina as the bluff because Cocos, I don't, Cocos is Cocos Krispies in some countries, but not in Ireland. So I'm skeptical, very, very skeptical now of Gina.
Wow.
I was winning.
You were?
I was, and now I'm not.
The tide turned.
That's very mean.
It's halfway through the game, so there's still time to come out ahead, Gina. Don't you worry about a thing. Chris, how about we hear from your story about your biplanes that land on water?
Yes. All right. So here we go. So Glenn Curtis, the American that was being attacked by these Frenchmen and this Austrian guy. And by the way, he was known at the time for being the fastest man on earth because after going 64 miles an hour in 1903, he went 136 miles an hour in 1904 on a V8 motorcycle that he built himself, and he ran here in Ormond Beach, Florida. Now, I will take this to the air right now because he used that same exact engine that he built for that motorcycle in Ormond Beach, and he started putting it on biplanes. And he created a bunch of planes, and he had some successes and some failures. And then he created his success was the Curtis Model D, and immediately got sued by the Wright brothers. So this guy, in another blow to his ego, was sued multiple times, multiple patent suits by the Orville and Wilbur Wright of Wright brothers fame.
Wow. Carlos, trying to appeal to some of our other historians there. Chris mentioned the word blow in a non-acronymic fashion. What say you?
First, that's appreciated. Secondly, I find it hard to believe that there was a 40-mile-per-hour jump over the course of 1 year. That seems a bit fast. Third, I find some sort of belief with the idea of just taking the engine from one thing to the other thing, because an engine's an engine. It's the same principle. It's just making something spin real fast or something to that effect. So sure, why not? Instead of doing this, it's doing this, whatever. But I'd like to think, I feel like Chris is dragging the Wright brothers' names into the mud by suggesting that they would push back on anyone making flight technology. I mean, we're not just talking about some everyday item that you would do, like a blender. Oh, we invented the blender first. Don't take our idea for a blender. This is flight. This is like man breaking the chains of gravity and going into the air. And you think that the Wright brothers would be supportive of anyone trying to make that endeavor. So shame on you, Chris. Shame with this camera. Shame on you, Chris, for tearing down the Wright brothers for your lie.
Wow. Well, at the end of the episode, we will find out just how douchey the Wright brothers were, Carlos. That'll be interesting to find out. Gina, what do you think of Chris's biplanes landing on water?
Bears love owing whistles. Blah, blah, wah. Anything. You can make blow into anything. That acronym could be anything. The acronym you chose is such a weird acronym that I don't even know what it is. So I'm still really confused. And I think, is a seaplane the kind that they used in the old Fantasy Island? Is that a seaplane?
On Fantasy Island, they did use a seaplane, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay. Well, the Wright brothers weren't inventing that kind of plane, so what are they mad about, really? Okay.
Yeah, well, there is a variation on the invention. True.
All right. I
Okay.
don't know. I'm reserving judgment. This is a hard one because I didn't understand any of it. So I'm just basically waiting until the end to bring me home.
All right, Gina. Maybe in round 3 you can take some better notes. But
I have been
Carlos,
Oh.
She's a deputy on the topic police. I just deputized her.
At least he's on topic.
well, good. Carlos, you haven't been able to tell your round 2 version of your story yet. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Good, Carlos. How about you give us some more insight on Bubbles?
Okay, so Treb's daughter Allie Henning, who may have been an uggo, I don't know what she looked like. May not have been adorable. Whatever, he loved her. Daughter's love is a father's love is a father's love. So anyway, he gets this idea. What if these two kids like blowing bubbles? Kids like blowing bubbles. What if we had a day where we tried to get a bunch of kids together, a bunch of people together, and we'll have them blow bubbles, and maybe is this a record? So he checks the Guinness Book of Records, and he's like, let me call these people and say, hey, we want to do a record where we get the most people blowing bubbles like within a minute in one place together, and we're going to make this our fundraiser. We're going to call it Bubble Day, Cincinnati Bubble Day. We're going to get people in. We're going to make it like a carnival thing. So they reserved space in the Tom Jones Commons of Eden Park near the Ohio River, a space big enough to hold like a city's block worth of people for their event, and then the planning started.
Ooh, planning. We're not going to see what happened as a result, but let's hear from our other historians. Gina, what did you think?
Oh, I'm riveted and on the end of my seat to hear the last round of his story, the planning stage. It'll be so fun.
I'm sorry, the fundraising efforts of Habitat for Humanity are not of interest to you. I'm sorry for you.
Keep going.
No, that's it. You keep going.
I'm done.
Well, if Gina's done, I think I'd like to hear Chris's take.
I am very disappointed in Carlos. First of all, he's disparaging this girl Abby. We don't know that she's not lovely. She could be an UGG, but we wouldn't go there, and he did. So boo on that.
True.
And then, yeah. I mean, now we're gonna get to the planning stage. He's been talking about this thing for 2 rounds, and now we're getting to planning. Man, he has definitely receded in his truthfulness, in my opinion.
I have as much time to prepare as the two of you, all right?
Interesting. Okay.
Okay,
Well,
you know what? It could be planning and execution. You don't know. I got buzzed before I said and execution.
we ran out of time for him to tell us, so we'll find out more. Hopefully, we get to the point in round 3. Hey, you know what? It's time for round 3.
Time for round 3.
Hey, yes, that's right, audience. I think it's okay. Who didn't get to go in? Who didn't get to go first? That's what I'm thinking. Is that
Me.
Gina?
No, me.
No, Gina already went first. Chris, thank you, Chris.
Yes.
Chris, it is time for you to kick off round 3 with your final discussion on biplanes landing on water. And you're only going to get a mere 45 seconds to wrap it up, Chris.
All right, I can do that. Here we go. So Glenn Curtis did all this discovering, and he was a pioneer in aviation. He was a pioneer in motorcycle engine racing. But he, again, took a huge blow to his ego when he was alive and his legacy because of controversies. But his biggest success, before we get to controversies, his biggest success was he created the first biplanes landing on water used by the U.S. Navy, which ended up leading to the first aircraft carriers. However, he ended up losing all 9 of his lawsuits from the Wright brothers. They won every one of them in court. And then his best and biggest controversy was he had rigged a plane at the Smithsonian Institute to say that someone else had first flight, and he got caught on that, and he got disgraced. So his legacy took a huge blow at the end of his career.
Oh, there's that word again. blow, and you're out of time, Chris. Oh my goodness, Gina, what did you think?
How convenient that the guy that he's doing his story about is disgraced by history, and maybe we can't find him online because he was, he did that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, how convenient! It's just perfect, Chris. Good one. I like it. Good trickery.
Wow. Gina calling out the inability to Google his facts. Carlos, what did you think?
We're supposed to believe that this person, this real person, did some silly comedy heist style thing in the Smithsonian to what? Put his name in the history books like no one would know this? Like, and then he was sued with 9 lawsuits from the Wright brothers. You have no shame, Chris. You have no shame in dragging Orville and Wilbur's name through the mud. No shame.
Wow. No shame.
Wasn't even around back then? 1905? Was the Smithsonian even a thing yet?
No, that was later on at the Smithsonian, 1930.
Oh, okay, yeah.
His comeback there was no hesitation.
There was no hesitation.
Only 80 years away. Only 80 years.
Chris,
only 90 years ago.
Facts, my friend. That was not a bluff right there, I don't think. Carlos,
yeah.
Let's hear your wrap up on the Habitat of Humanity's planning and hopefully execution of their bubble event.
All right, let's just skip the planning then. Let's just go to the execution. Okay. So they got local stores like Kmart and Walgreens and local toy stores to donate bubble fluid. They also let people know, they gave them like a quick and dirty like recipe on how to make like cheap bubble fluid using a mix of distilled water and dish liquid soap. They set up carnival rides, midway games. They even got professional bubble artist Denny Yang to come and do stuff for the kids at the event on the Saturday. Now, they even got Jimmy Carter, big Habitat for Humanity guy, to do a pre-tape thing for everyone. They thought they were going to get rained out, though. They reserved the next week just in case, but they were not rained out, and they made a record.
Ooh. They set a record? They set a record. They set a record? Okay, I thought maybe they made a record and recorded some interesting stuff.
No,
okay,
they set a record.
They set a record. Gino, I want to hear your take on this.
Wait a minute. What record? What record did they set?
The most people blowing bubbles together at a single time.
Was that in the Guinness Book?
Yeah.
Was it in Ripley?
Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum? I don't know if it was in Ripley. I don't know.
Well,
that's how Ripley works. Because I don't think Ripley does world records. They do weird things.
I don't believe it. If it wasn't in Ripley's, believe it or not.
I don't know if you know what that is.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. That's Gina's authority on record being set is Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Into every one of them. Never saw that.
Which Garfield properly called Believe It or Don't, because that's proper English. Chris, what did you think of that telling of bubbles?
Well, I think that he conveniently rushed through. He mentioned this Habitat for Humanity at the very beginning, and this guy who was the president and his daughter Abby, and she may or may not be ugly or we don't know. Allie, sorry, and. But then he just kind of flows through this whole thing. He brought in Jimmy Carter because, Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind were kind enough to help out and build some houses for Habitat Humanity, which is a widely known fact. And there's video all over the place of them doing that. It's just very convenient. And in 1987, we all lived during 1987. We knew they didn't do this kind of thing back in 1987. If he had picked a different year, if he had said 1997 or more so 2007, much more believable. I find this hard to believe that this kind of thing went on in 1987 without being widely.
What are you talking about? There's crap like that all the time in the 80s. Hands Across America, Balloon Fest. They always did stuff like that.
We are the world.
We are the world.
None of them have bubbles.
And also, if it wasn't in the Farmer's Almanac, I don't believe it.
Oh.
How do you know it's not a farm? Do you have a farmer's almanac?
I
Oh, boy. Then check.
If it's not an
Wow.
Uncle Henry's swap it or sell it guide, it never happened.
do.
If it is not in a
you know-
museum for freaks of nature, then it didn't happen.
Chris might have watched Farm Aid had they only been blowing bubbles. Gina, you have not been able to tell your round 3 story regarding Treasure Island, so I'm going to give you that opportunity right now.
Can I get 15 extra seconds?
No.
Sorry.
Okay. So just to let you know, Robert Stevenson, he was before he actually published the Treasure Island stories, he was not successful. He was sick and he was addicted to opium. He had tuberculosis, and so when he started having an affair with a lady that was married in the United States, and he went from Scotland to San Francisco. While in San Francisco, he read the story about Thompson and the lost treasure of Lima. He took Fanny, his affair woman, down to the island of Samoa. And in Samoa, there's an island right off the coast. It is called Tafahi. He pretended to be he was called Fatulo. They thought of him as a fish god because when he came into shore, he had fireworks. And he lived the rest of his life in a wild.
Gina's being played off. All right. We got quite a few facts. According to Gina, in that final round. I'm sorry, Gina, if you didn't get to say everything you wanted to say.
It's the most important thing.
Yes.
The most important thing is that later on, that island where he lived in a mansion.
Music, Adam.
That was called Tafahi today. Back in the day, it was called Ghost.
Oh, she's just reiterating the name of the island that she had mentioned earlier in the story. Chris, what say you?
I say no, it wasn't. I think that Gina threw out so many facts and details in that last round that I am convinced she's just pulling stuff from multiple different stories to make it fit in because she was under the clock, under the gun to get a story done because we were all coming up, we were getting ready to go on the air, and she was like, "Oh, I'm going to take this from this one, and this from this one," because Fanny, isn't that a character in another play? In a musical? No, I'm calling bluff on that.
It is another name for butt.
Oh, that is also true.
Alex!
That doesn't mean the story's true, but that fact is
Where's HR?
Carlos, you have something to say. What say you?
I do have something to say. I agree with Chris here. This was an orgy of specificity at the end. She's throwing away details to make it seem real. Oh, and for people who are watching this for the first time and think, "Oh, she went over the clock. Clearly, she's telling the truth." She does that all the time. That's her go-to gimmick. So don't buy into that, okay? All right, don't buy into any of it. Like, again, I don't know what that has to do with the dynamite she mentioned at the beginning. Coco ain't blow, all right? I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know what to tell you either, except that we're going to find out who is telling the truth. Adam, are you ready to take this away?
I think we're ready. Alan, do we want to see if anybody else wants to give a last guess among the historians?
Yes, historians. Carlos, who do you think is the bluff?
Oh, man, this is tough. I feel bad about throwing my boys Orville and Wilbur under the bus, but I kind of think that Chris may have been telling the truth, which means Gina's the bluffer. I think Gina's the bluffer. Gina's bluffing.
All right, we got a vote for Gina. Chris, what say you?
I was doing a little bit of reading Carlos' body language there as he was determining who was the bluff between Gina or myself. And because, man, this was a tough one for me because I really think that they both easily could be bluffing. I am reluctantly going to, because I think they are both bluffing, but I can only pick one. So I'm going to say Gina is the bluff.
What is happening?
Who votes for Gina? Oh my goodness.
He had his own real life treasure island. Like he lived on an island that was Coco's, the one where the treasure was.
He met some woman from across the pond back in the day, even though he was an addict. That's ridiculous.
Oh gosh, I wish you knew.
Gina, this is your chance for retribution.
Oh, sorry. I would like
Who
to
do you
vote.
think is the bluffer?
I vote for Chris because I understood very little of his story, and it might be because girls don't. I don't know. Girls don't understand maps and boats, and not all girls. Me, this girl. I don't know. That's because I think that I literally think he just took Flo, made an acronym, and said, "I'll make a story up of whatever acronym I land on." And I really do believe that, and so I think it was Chris. So that's what I say. I know my story is true. It's far-fetched, but it's true, and it's really fun.
Okay, we've got 2 votes for Gina. We've got 1 vote for Chris. That means it's time to find out who is a dirty, dirty liar. Right, Adam?
That's correct. Alan, I'm going to put our bluffers on the screen, or the buffers. We don't know. It's my knowledge and mine alone. Could it have been Gina bluffing you this whole time? I know, but you don't. It could have been Chris. Well, I don't know. It could have even been Carlos this whole time. We're about to find out. Ladies and gentlemen, your bluffer tonight, this whole time, it was Carlos!
2 for 2, baby. 2 for 2.
Oh,
It tastes so good. I tricked everybody 2 shows in a row.
Jerk,
Well
you're
done.
a jerk.
Me.
Well done, Carlos. You bluffed everyone, and you bluffed successfully. Well done, Carlos. No one voted for Carlos. 2 people thought Gina was bluffing, but she was telling the truth. Cocos was an island, and Chris was voted against as well. But apparently, the Orville brother or the Wright brothers were not right in their morality about the future of aviation. They were money grubbing jerks. They wanted their
shame
patent.
on them.
I never
They
said
wanted
that.
their patent.
They wanted credit. Come on, you'd want credit if you invented something new.
It wasn't
Well,
that.
I just
Carlos-
like to say that even though I know I was the bluff, I still think Gina might be the bluff.
No, I really am not bluffing. It is such a good story. I would very highly recommend going and finding it. It's great. It's a great story. He could not have lived on the money that he made from his books the way that he lived if he didn't have another source of income, aka treasure. I'm just saying.
And that was hidden on an island called
of treasure.
Cocos.
But
There was
everybody
no
went.
on Cocos. Is what
Everybody
we
went
found
to
out.
the wrong Cocos, and he found the right one.
Well, we've been bluffed, Adam. So let's wrap it up.
All right.
Make it for you.
Alan, thank you for hosting, and we want a big thanks to all our historians, Gina and Chris and Carlos, and I am your host. Ladies and gentlemen, come on back and visit us. We are here every week. We are History Bluffs, where truth is stranger than fiction.